Everybody. A very good evening to all of you all who are watching me in today's live episode. I am Sapna Mahadevan, your host for this evening. And today, again, I'm going to walk you through another interesting and new genre in the fiction story writing masterclass. So I hope that you all have had a productive day so far and you're all doing good. Do let me know in the chat box if you have some comments for me, any thoughts that you would specifically want to share with me. Please go ahead. The chat box is open and welcome for a conversation. And yes, let's be a participative audience. Like always, I definitely love to hear all about you and what you all are doing, maybe which is the place from where you're watching me today. Do let me know all of these details in the chat box there. Yes. And today, let me tell you, it is a genre which is quite fascinating. And mankind, we always see, is fascinated with the unknowns, right? So here is another genre which deals with a lot of unknowns. There are too many questions which are unanswered, and we are going to find out how we can be making our story more and more interesting. What are the different tips and tricks, the essentials, the plot building pointers for today's genre as well. Yes. So before I move any further, let me first introduce you to the fiction story writing masterclass. And more than in any other genre, this is one genre which really needs you to have oodles of imagination. And that is why you need to unleash the writer in you with a lot of imagination and you can try and have a wide array of subjects that you can choose from, right? Before I let you know on what the genre is for today, here is the coming up slide. And today as well, we have a lot of special segments curated specially for our dear viewers. And here we have the list or the gamut of activities that we have planned, right? So as always, we are going to delve deeper into some of the prerequisites, or I can call them quintessential elements in writing a story. And then I will be also talking about some tips regarding these aspects. And of course, we will also be delving deeper into the plot building pointers. These are pointers or plot builders which are going to take our story forward and make the narrative more and more interesting. Yes. And apart from all of these primary segments, we have a lot of fun segments curated for all of you. There is the Google It segment, which is aimed at amplifying your vocabulary. Then there is a recommendation of the day. There is Guess the Movie segment. There are going to be some word games that we will be playing at the end of the episode. And also, how can we forget, there are going to be a lot of icebreaker questions like always. And I am hoping to get some amusing answers there in the chat box. Yes. So all this and more coming up in today's episode. Let's move ahead to the first icebreaker question. Here it is, the first icebreaker question for the day, and it's quite simple. What is your favorite genre? That is the first question of the day. So do let me know in the chat box. Anytime, whenever you get to grab a story, then what is the genre that you usually choose for, or you usually would like to go for? Yes. For me, the favorite genre would be crime detective stories, maybe thrillers, or something which has mystery and suspense labeled on top of it, right? That's what is my favorite genre. And I really love to curl up with my book there and try and figure out where this is going and how we can find a resolution to all the suspense and to all the adrenaline rush that we have throughout a thriller and suspense. Yes. So that's my favorite genre. Do let me know what is yours. And okay, we get comments here. Hello to all of you. I get to see a lot of colorful emojis there. That's wonderful. My chat box is really a vibrant hue of color. And okay, so Lakshmi tells me, great. So she tells me that she likes the fantasy genre, and who doesn't love the fantasy genre, isn't it? It actually gives us um, a lot of understanding, and maybe we can observe the writer's style in a fantasy genre very clearly, isn't it? And we can see how the creative writer or the author is actually running their imagination wild with fantasy and all of the fantastical magical elements there, isn't it? Yes, so fantasy is one of those magical genres that we all love, right? And what are the other genres? Sci-fi coming up next. Okay, so let me tell you, today as well we have a genre which is of sci-fi. Of course, there is a different subgenre which we are going to explore for today. Right, so sci-fi, it is all about robots and aliens and invasions and whatnot, isn't it? Futuristic time travel, maybe. Yes, a lot of elements there that can be explored again for sci-fi. And really, right. So yes, that is true. Fantasy is mesmerizing. That's true. And thanks a lot for all of these answers there. Yash tells me that he loves sci-fi. Great. So sci-fi and the fantasy are the two popular, genres that are coming up here in the chat box. But let me move ahead now and give you an understanding of what the genre is that we are going to explore for today, right? Here is the golden question: what's the genre? And we know it is sci fi. So let me tell you, these are fictional stories. That means that these are imaginative stories at best, and they have a lot of speculation, a lot of imagination, and these are all in reference to science and its concepts, right? So that's sci-fi for you. And let's look at one of the other icebreaker questions. The question is, what is your worst nightmare? Right? So any kind of a bad dream that you might have had, or some kind of a terrifying situation that you're always afraid of, do let me know in the chat box there. And let me see, what are your worst nightmares? Okay. Hello there, Presha. Thanks again for joining the live today. And a very warm welcome to each one of my audience members here. It's really fun to have a conversation going with all of you wonderful people, right? And I can see I have a lot of bad dreams. Okay. Um, I think dreams are whatever we keep thinking subconsciously, isn't it? And that comes out when we sleep, right? Um, Nightmares, can't think of any. Okay. Okay, so do let me know if you can think of any nightmare that you have. I have the fear of dark. Okay, that's a fear that you have. But is there a nightmare that you have? Have you seen a bad dream sometimes, or is there a deja vu moment when you feel that, oh, this particular thing has been already experienced, maybe, and you do not have a clue of it, right? So something that probably you're afraid of and you dream about that, right? Do let me know whenever I get some comments here in the chat box. I'll definitely read them out. And yes, with that, let me move ahead to the next segment, which is the subgenre of the day. So in sci-fi, we have dystopian fiction as the subgenre for the day. And let me tell you what dystopia would mean. It explores the antithesis of a utopian society. So, a utopian society is one where the author's vision of an ideal fictional world is there, and they actually think of an imaginative world where everything is hunky dory, right? There is uh, everything is perfect, there is nothing wrong going in that world, and that is what is utopia. Right now, dystopia is the complete opposite of utopia, and these stories, dystopian stories, they usually have characters or societies who are grappling with bad places, like maybe a post-apocalyptic uh, place where people are in distress, there is too much suffering, right? So this particular genre here, the dystopian science fiction genre, that's really gaining popularity. And let me tell you, one of the reasons is that these stories, they actually have a natural supply of intense conflict. There is a lot of drama, and of course there is suspense as well. Yes, so we all want to know while we are reading a dystopian sci-fi as to what's going to be the ending like, right? And that's why there is a total build-up of suspense there. And this is counted as one of the popular genres in story writing. Yes. Now, as I told you, it is the complete opposite of utopia. Utopia would mean that it's a happy place, and dystopia would mean that there is too much suffering and distress in the society, right? Now, let me tell you more about this particular word dystopia, and it comes from Latin. The prefix dys means bad, and the root topos means place. So literally, it transforms into bad place, right? Topos you can also understand from topography, like we read that in geography, right? The terrain and how is the place, right? So that's why topos is place, and this means bad, which put together constitutes bad place. That's what dystopia is, the word. We're from Latin, and the word is contrasted with utopia. And let me tell you, Thomas More coined utopia in the year 1516, and it was the title of one of his books about an imaginary island where legal, political, or social systems all had a social harmony, right? So this word suggested that it was a paradise kind of a feeling there, and it is often taken to mean a good place, even though actually utopia's roots mean no place, right? So that's how utopia and dystopia are antonyms. And today we are going to look at how we can be writing a dystopian sci-fi. So there is suffering, it is an imagined state or a society in which there is great suffering, there is injustice and inequality, and typically it could also have a situation where it is post-apocalyptic, right? So that's what dystopia means. You can give me a comment in the chat box to just let me know if you have a fair understanding of this genre here. And more about dystopia, let me tell you that it could have characters who battle environmental ruin. There could be technological control and government oppression, or other common dystopian themes include survival, religious takeover, loss of individualism, and post-apocalyptic worlds, right? So these are the various themes that you can be going ahead with in your dystopian sci-fi story. And we will now move ahead to the next icebreaker question. And after that, I would be giving you some tips and essentials on how you can be going ahead with writing your first piece of a dystopian sci-fi, right? So now it is time for one icebreaker question, and here it is: a favorite place to hang out. Do let me know what is your favorite place to hang out. And let me see what all comments I get there. Uh, Janaki tells me it would be a library. That's wonderful. That's definitely a favorite place to hang out, right? And apart from being a favorite place, it also gives you a wealth of information, isn't it? Yes, anytime. So great going there. Library is one place that comes up here in the chat box, and I'm really glad. And okay, a coffee shop. That's good. An evening out with friends and family, maybe. Yes. Favorite place to hang out. School is another one that I get there. And totally, we make a lot of good memories in school, isn't it? Yes. I am totally with you with that answer there, Karthik. Thanks again for all of those answers. And yes, let's move ahead to the essentials, or how we can be establishing the essentials for in the first place while we write a dystopian sci-fi. Yes. So three definite elements again that today I would want to list out here. for writing a dystopian fiction story, and that too an interesting dystopian fiction story. Yes. So the three elements that we would want to talk about here, one of them is how you can be creating a backstory, and then about the imaginative world building. So take it from me, in a dystopian sci-fi, the world building is of importance. It is really crucial to your story, and you need to give it out to your readers about the sense of place, the setting of your story, and that's how it is going to take them through that story world, right? Now, the third element that we are going to focus on for today's genre is themes of control and loss of individualism. So, is there oppression in your story? Is there a loss of individualism? This is what we are going to see in the essentials. So, let's go ahead with the first element there, which is create a backstory, right? So here, while we talk about writing a dystopian story, dystopian future is most usually bleak and uncertain. But our audience definitely wants to know how did they get that way, right? Now they want to know what was the first foreshadowing of things to come in your dystopian story. What was the turning point in the world's history, maybe? When did the inhabitants of the world lose all hope and they stopped fighting back? Losing hope to such an extent that they do not have it in them to fight back, even, right? And all of these questions can only be answered if you know how your dystopian setting came to be, in order to better figure out how all of this works, right? So you need to create a backstory about why is the world that you're showcasing in that dystopian state. Yes. Now these are questions that you want answered for your audiences, and for them to have a better understanding of the story, of the genre that you are wanting to create. And that was the first essential there, how you can be creating a backstory. And then the second essential that we have for writing a dystopian sci-fi is the imaginative world building, right? So these stories require a greater suspension of disbelief, and they can be really very imaginative. For example, if you think about the popular story Animal Farm, written by George Orwell, it is about a group of pigs who stage a rebellion against their human farmer, because the farmer used to oppress the animals, and the farm animals rise to the occasion and they showcase their power. And this book is based on the Russian Revolution, right? So that's how, from this book, we understand how you require imaginative ability, and you need to have a large creative playground where you create a new world which is imaginative at best. Yes. Now, that was the second element. And moving ahead to the third element, where we talk about individualism, or loss of loss of individualism, and there being control and oppression throughout the story, right? So, dystopian works or dystopian stories, they often cover similar thematic ground, and typical dystopian themes would include government which has a dictatorship pattern, or which is not equal towards its citizens, or there is a technological control that's one of the themes in your story, and conformity at the expense of individualism is one of the themes that runs wild throughout the story, right? So there are various themes that you can be thinking about. You can be thinking about a post-apocalyptic theme as well. But when we talk about the themes of control and loss of individualism, it would be more to do with an oppressive government, government or particular ruler who is having a dictatorship format, and there could also be technological control, right? So these are the different themes that you can be thinking for your dystopian sci-fi story, and you need to give a world building and set the new rules for your audiences to easily comprehend, right? Now, after this, I'm going to move ahead to the first Google It word for today, which is individualism. And what it means is being independent or being self-reliant. So you're not dependent on anyone, right? So that's the habit or the principle of being independent or being self-reliant, right? So this is the word individualism, and we do not want to lose our individualism on any of the grounds that we mentioned in our themes of the story, right? So that's why this particular genre is imaginative at best. We need to have oodles of imagination there to write our story and create a new world which our audiences will be easily understanding, right? So this is the first word in our Google It segment for today. Do write down the word individualism, which means being self reliant or being independent, right? Now, moving ahead to the next icebreaker question. Here we have the next one. So, yes, there it is. Favorite childhood game. You might want to mention out your favorite childhood game in the chat box here, and it'll be fun to know what are the different games that people play all across the world, right? Cricket is the one game that I get there first in the chat box. Thanks for that answer there, Varun. And Yash tells me football. Football was one of his favorite childhood games. Great. Presha says skating. That's wonderful. So it's a tough balancing act, right, Presha? And what else? Okay, we have seven ladders come up there. I'm not sure what that game is all about. I might want to Google that up after the session here. Yes. Um, okay, and what else? What are your favorite childhood games? I remember playing hide and seek, which was one of my favorite games during childhood. Um, and we used to play a lot of games which required role play. So, yes, sometimes I would be the teacher, sometimes I would be a long lost friend, and we used to do role plays. And that was really, the start of creative thinking, isn't it? Those were some of my favorite childhood games. I can see football, cricket, there's seven ladder, all of these games come up there in the chat box. Interesting. Thanks again for all of those answers. And let's move ahead to expert tips on establishing the essentials, right? So the first expert tip that we have for all of our viewers here to write a dystopian literature, it is it feels like it hits close to home, right? So you need to make the story more and more relatable, and the more your dystopian world feels like the real world, the more believable it will be for your audiences, right? That doesn't mean that it cannot include creatures or different technologies in sci-fi, or maybe sci-fi elements that are not still familiar. It doesn't mean that. You can, of course, have an imaginative and creative side to you, and maybe talk about elements or technological advancements that are still not familiar, but see to it that it connects with your readers with this world. And world building is one of the good ways to set up the components of your alternate reality that will ultimately affect how your main characters exist and how they survive throughout your story, right? So this was one expert tip, that you want to keep your story connectable, relatable, and connected with your audiences. And the second expert tip with writing a dystopian sci-fi would be that you need to think about who the leader of your dystopian scenario is. How did they usurp or increase their control? Who benefits under this reign? Who suffers the most, maybe? And what are the power dynamics? These are all the central themes in dystopian novels, right? So this is again one of the angles that you can be exploring for your story. Before you start writing, you need to be clear about the central plot of your dystopian sci-fi. Yes. And let me now move ahead to the second Google it word, which is world building. So let me tell you, world building is one of those literary devices, which is the process of constructing an imaginary world, which is sometimes also associated with a fictional universe. So you want to have an imaginary setting, you need to think through the history, the geography, the topography, the ecology of the place. And these are one of the key tasks that a creative writer will perform before they start writing their sci fi or fantasy stories, right? So, world building is nothing but a process of constructing that imaginary world and thinking about the various rules that you are going to place into that new world that you have formed. Yes. Now, with that word there, let me move ahead to the next segment. And I would request all of you to jot down all of these Google It words in your fancy Google It journal, or maybe you can just write them down in one place so that it forms like a ready reckoner for you, right, in the future. And now let's look at our next segment, which is the movie title trivia. So here I'm going to show you some pictures and you need to guess these popular time zone based dystopian fiction movie titles. Yes, here is the first picture for the day. Are you able to make out what this movie is all about? If you have an inkling towards the name of the movie, then do let me know in the chat box. A question mark come up there. Let me reveal that answer. It is Mortal Engines, right? That's the name of the movie, and I think it is. It has been adapted from a book, if I'm not wrong. And here is the second picture there. That seems like quite a futuristic world. People trying to, just move from one place to another, right? Seven Sisters, One Identity is the tagline that we have for this movie here. And let me give you the name of the movie, What Happened to Monday. That's the name of the movie. And moving ahead now to the last one for the day, there it is. Okay. So again, we can see in this picture here, seems really a terrifying state of affairs, right? Not a lot of people there. Okay, let me give that to you. Here is the name of the movie. It is called Cargo. Yes. So with that, let us now move ahead and focus towards how we can be writing an interesting story plot. Here is the plotting the plot segment. And again, three important plot building pointers for writing an effective dystopian fiction. There they are on the screen. So here we list down all the three elements. So first of all, you need to settle on a central theme. The second of all element is that you consider the world around you. And thirdly, you need to build a complex and a detailed world for your dystopian fiction, right? So let's move ahead and check out all of these elements in detail. We have Shrutika join the live here. Hello there, Shrutika. Thanks a lot for joining the live. I hope you're doing well. And yes, so back on track, we are here at plotting the plot. And the first element that we need to understand better is how we can be settling for a central theme for our story. Yes. So now the best dystopian writing, it explores a central theme while building out a dystopian world. And what it means is that, there are going to be a lot of subplots, but they are all going to revolve around that central theme that you have for your story, right? Now, Brave New World is one of the stories which uses its dystopian setting to examine the dangers of rapid technological advancement. And in one of the other stories, The Giver, Louis Lowry, the author, he reflects on the loss of individualism through the eyes of Jonas, who is the main character. And when you are going to brainstorm or think about what is the theme or what are the different ideas that you're going to, write or introduce into your dystopian story, you should consider what is the central theme that you would like to examine and make sure that it runs throughout the story, throughout your novel, right? So that's why it is called the central theme. And around this theme, your subplots would be revolving, right? So that's the first element here in the plot building pointer, which is you need to first focus on a central theme for your story. And now the second element is consider the world around you. So dystopian stories are going to be effective and thought provoking because they reflect the elements of our own society. and you can always take inspiration from whatever is happening in your society, in the world at large. And as you write a dystopian fiction, think about aspects of society that you find to be troublesome, or maybe you find them to be really fearful, and you think that these aspects could be one of those aspects that are going to turn troublesome in the future, right? So you can always take inspiration from the world that we see, and through your eyes you can talk about one particular theme that you're going to run throughout the novel, which is going to really have a connect with your audiences because you take inspiration from the real world scenario, right? Now the third element that we want to discuss here is building a complex and a detailed, intricate world, right? Now, this is one of the most exciting aspects of writing sci-fi stories, because you get the opportunity to immerse yourself in a strange and unfamiliar world, and you have a level playground. You can be as creative as you want. There is a lot of creative freedom that this particular genre gives you, and you need to build on to the complex rules of the new world, and you have to actually talk about all the intricate details that you can meticulously weave and craft through your story, right? So keep it as detailed as possible, and it's not enough to simply say that your story takes place in post apocalypse era, but you need to actually give a strong world building, give a vivid description to your readers as to how that world looks as of now, what are the new rules that you people need to follow, and all the intricate little details that you can add to your story will really help and make this genre more and more exciting, right? So those were the plot building pointers. And let's look at the next Google it word that we have here, which is immerse. So when I say that you need to immerse fully into the world building, into the meticulous details that you can be forming as a part of your story, immerse would mean involve oneself deeply in a particular activity, right? And in this case, we spoke about how you can involve yourself fully in writing that story by giving intricate nuances of the world that you want your readers to see from your eyes, right? So that's the meaning of the word immerse. More literally, it would mean to dip something in a liquid, maybe. And in this sense that we are using it in our slides, it would mean involve oneself deeply in a particular activity, right? So immerse is a verb and an action word, right? And let's move ahead to the expert tips in on plotting the plot. The first element that we have here as an expert tip for all our audiences is that a few ways on how you can be exploring the ending of your story. Now again, that is something which is going to bind the whole story together. So some writers, they prefer to keep an open door, and they have this positive thinking that hopefully there will be a brighter future thanks to the lessons that people have learned in the negative world. And some of the other creative writers, they like to have a world which is going to spiral into an even more negative zone. And it totally depends on you as a creative writer, what is the ending that you would want for your story. So whichever is the ending that you choose for, maybe a positive one or a negative one, just make sure that the conclusion actually makes sense for all of your characters involved, right? So you need to tie up all of the loose ends and limit the plot twist so that it is not baffling for your audiences. And dystopian fiction typically needs a solid finish, a strong resolution towards the ending of the story, and it needs to be meaningful for your audiences. Yes. So this is how you need to end the story. That's one expert tip there. And now for the second expert tip, let me take you through that. Here it is. So yes, now for the second expert tip, let me tell you that dystopian fiction needs to have a vivid and an engaging feel to it, and a writer must disengage from the world that they know. They have to create an imaginative world there, an alternative reality, and the reality must be actually suspended. Yes. So you must place yourself into this world, think about how you would react, how you would function, or how you would particularly survive in the new world that you have created from your imagination. And that is what is the USP of the story, creating a unique base for your story, building a world which no one has ever seen before. And in many ways, your story will speak for itself, right? So that's another expert tip here, how you can, through your eyes, make your readers understand all the rules and all the essentials of your new world building, right? So these were the expert tips. I'm hopeful that they are going to help you in your story writing process. And with that, I'm going to move ahead to the next Google it word, which is apocalyptic, right? Now, apocalyptic would mean something that, gives you an inkling of the destruction of the world, right? And it is going to be really humongous in form and shape, and it's really going to be catastrophic, right? That's how deep an impact it's going to have on the world, right? So that's what apocalyptic would mean. It is an adjective which describes the noun, which is a place, right? Or the world. So, apocalyptic can be used as an adjective whenever you want to describe the world as being completely destroyed, or being or having maybe a catastrophic feel to it, right? So, if I want to use that in a sentence, apocalyptic in a sentence, then I could be saying the struggle between the two countries is assuming apocalyptic proportions. That would mean that the impact is really intensifying, right? Now, with that word there, I hope you're jotting down all of those words in your Google It journal. And with that, we come to the end of all of the plot building pointers and the expert tips, the prerequisites, the quintessential elements. So, hopefully, you have had a better understanding of a dystopian fiction story. And now we move ahead to another fun segment, which is fill in the words. So, you need to complete the word in a minute. I'm going to show you a word which has some blanks that you need to fill up, right? Give me the meaningful word in the chat box, and let me tell you that all of these words are related to today's episode, right? So what can you understand from this word here? It is a 10 letter word starting with B and ending with M. Brainstorm, that is correct. Yes, you need to brainstorm and have a lot of ideas on how you can be thinking of the central theme for your dystopian fiction, how you can create a new world with your imagination, right? So brainstorm is the word there. And the last word in our fill in the blanks section, here it is. That's quite easy. I've been using this word a lot in today's episode. That's correct again. It is, of course, dystopian. Yes. So dystopian is was the second word here. And thanks a lot for that, Arv, for the answer. Prisha, that's correct. So, all of you giving me correct answers. And let's move ahead to the next section. Here is the recommendation of the day. And we also spoke about this in one of our slides. It is The Brave New World, which is based on dystopian sci-fi. And that's one of the recommendations from us to you. And with that, we come to the end of the episode. And before I end the broadcast, I would like to give you a quick roundup of all the insights that we had in today's episode. So, the name of the segment is At a Glance. And first things first, we have the essentials. So, what we need to do here is, first of all, create a backstory, talk about, why is the world in this state of dystopia in the first place. And you need to have an imaginative world building that you can be doing for your audiences, and that's the most exciting part for while you're writing a dystopian sci-fi. And then the various themes could include themes of oppression and control by the government, or a dictatorship regime, or maybe a loss of individualism. Yes, so these are the essentials here. And the plot building pointers are, you need to first settle on to a central theme around which all the subplots are going to revolve, and then consider the world around you. Maybe if you have taken inspiration from the real world setting, then it's going to be more and more relatable for your audiences. And of course, you need to create detailed, complex world, which where you will be also talking about all the intricate details that you can be weaving throughout your story, right? So this was the at a glance segment, and now for the project work, I would strongly encourage each one of you to be implementing all the learnings that we have had from today's episode and try writing a story around dystopian sci-fi, so you can explore the various themes that we spoke about in our episode and form a central theme, and think about how the people are trying to survive this whole scenario, how are they reacting to this new world. Yes, and everything is stemming from the author's imagination, so you definitely need to have oodles of imagination while you're trying to write your first dystopian fiction story draft, right? So with that project work, we come to the end of today's episode. And let me tell you, for tomorrow, we will be back with another interesting genre, which is comedy. And we will see how we can be writing a story which is going to make our audiences laugh off their heads, right? So that is what is going to come next. Do stay tuned in with me tomorrow as well at 6 p.m. India time. I am Sapna Mahadevan signing out for today. I hope you had as much fun as I had in bringing this episode out to all of you wonderful people there. And yes, so keep smiling and stay happy always. Bye bye.